Hey everyone, Spock must be rolling over in his grave right about now. I kid, of course. Spock is just a character from Star Trek, played by Leonard Nimoy, who has long since passed. Now, for anyone that has ever watched Star Trek, whether it's the series or the movies, you know that Spock was all about logic. Vulcans are taught from birth to suppress their emotions and to perceive and deal with the world around them purely on a logical basis. And if that character were alive today and seeing this article from the CBC News, I can only speculate. It wouldn't be a stretch to suggest he'd be awestruck by such a ridiculous headline. CBC News Saskatoon, illogical for truck convoy to claim freedoms threatened by vaccine mandate, says experts. Truckers entering Canada must now be vaccinated against COVID-19 to avoid testing and quarantine rules. Reported by Jason Warwick, January 28th, 2022. And this constant use of the term experts, well, those of us with our eyes wide open are seeing that they seem anything but. Truckers already submit to a host of mandatory government safety regulations, from health checks to electronic monitoring of their movements. That's why some experts say it makes no sense for some drivers to claim their freedoms are now at risk from a COVID-19 vaccination added to that long list of job requirements. I mean, I don't know. There's a couple different ways you could respond to that one. I mean, the first one off the top of my head is, yeah, just because there's already lots of authoritarian mandates, restrictions, and impositions on our life, that's not an excuse or a reason to suggest we should accept more. Hello, expert, right? Of course, another way to respond to this would be to suggest there's a big difference between having to get a very basic medical exam and being forced to have multiple vaccines injected into your body. Big difference there, right? And I mean, is that really the best that they got to offer? Like, it takes an expert to come up with that kind of opinion? Really? I see opinions like that spread all over the internet, in particular on Twitter, from some very irrational, blue-haired, cult-like figures. A cross-Canada convoy of truckers, yeah, that's right, they're in Ottawa now, and actually not just Ottawa, but they're now taking up positions all over this country and actually inspiring movements around the world. Hashtag Truckers for Freedom 2022. So proud of each and every one of you, and keep up the great work. A cross-country convoy of truckers and their supporters is en route to Ottawa to protest a COVID-19 vaccine mandate that, as of last week, requires Canadian truckers returning to the country to be vaccinated if they want to avoid quarantine and molecular tests. The U.S. has imposed a similar vaccine mandate. Well, let me just point out this whole thing with quarantine. Whether it's 5 days, 10 days, or 2 weeks, that kind of imposition would be detrimentally harsh on cross-border truckers. Kind of hard to get work done when your wheels aren't turning. Because, yeah, that's how most truck drivers get paid, in particular owner-operators. The convoy does not have the support of the Canadian Trucking Alliance, the Saskatchewan Trucking Association, or other groups. The convoy is getting attention because the trucks are so large, but it appears it represents only a small minority of Canada's 300,000 long-haul drivers, said Alexander Krizel, an associate professor and director of the Driving Research and Simulation Laboratory at the University of Saskatchewan. I mean, that's another thing, folks. Think about how this whole thing is unfolded, right? So you got these people from academia, right? Whether it's the health experts. I mean, most of these experts, if you noticed a pattern here, they all seem to come from academia. And we've already heard from people like Jordan Peterson how toxic the environment is now in those halls of academics, in those halls of academia, in those institutions of academia. And not just Jordan Peterson. Others like God Sod, Bruce Pardy, and David Haskell, oh, and let's not forget Lindsay Shepherd, have given us proof and lended their voice to the notion that, yes, these institutions are filled with activists who are ideologically driven and are now the ones who have come out of academia and filling up, whether it's government institutions, corporate boards, or many of these other large entities or groups. The pattern is quite obvious at this point, folks. You got academia, the so-called experts, creating the policy, with the political and corporate class implementing, and the establishment media propagandizing the minds of Canadians to accept it. And no, I'm not talking about some grand conspiracy, just the culmination of reality and how people react to certain incentives. Anyways, folks, I'll place a link to this article in the description of the video below. Moving on to the next one. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.